Hello my spooky crew and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if this is your first time here. My name is Alex and thanks for coming to my spooky corner of the internet. I just got back from Atlanta for Multiverse Con. It was such a great weekend. I did panels about paranormal experiences as well as a Ouija board workshop. It was definitely a weekend to remember, so thank you so much to Atlanta and Multiverse Con for a wonderful time. Good news! Paperback copies of my new book, One Bed Over, A Hospital Haunting, is now available in paperback. Keep an eye on my Etsy shop this week because I will be posting links to get your own personalized signed copy of the book. I'm pleasantly surprised how well it turned out in paperback form, wow. If you're a Patreon subscriber and you're in the $9 tier, then you will get a signed copy of One Bed Over in December for the holidays. So if you want to join my Patreon, get a signed copy of the book, as well as access to other, spooky stuff content, then head on over to patreon.com/the spooky stuff. I think that's enough housekeeping. Let's get started. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving is truly one of my favorite ghost stories. I was first exposed to it thanks to Disney, and a family friend gifted me the storybook version of Disney's Legend of Sleepy Hollow when I was a kid. I think it was by Golden Books. Memories. And then of course I discovered the cartoon on Disney Channel. I loved listening to Bing Crosby's silky voice narrate and sing the tale. Also, it was one of the first ghost stories to really freak me out when I was a kid. And truly, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow is one of America's first ghost stories. And there's truth behind the legend. Washington Irving didn't make it all up in his head. He actually was inspired by real life events and real life people. What a better way to celebrate the spooky season than to talk about ghost stories that are rooted in truth. That will help us all sleep well at night. Before we get started, be sure to click on that subscribe button, give this video a like, and be sure to click on that notification bell so you'll be the first to know when I upload a new video. And of course, if you want more spooky content, ghost hunting tips, then head on over to thespookystuff.com. You can check out my blogs, YouTube channel, Instagram, TikTok, as well as my books. Alright, now let's get started. Let's talk about the real town. As I got older and my need for spooky content just got stronger, which was probably about the mid to late 90s, I decided to hit up my local library to learn more about Sleepy Hollow. So at first, I was shocked and freaked out to find that there was a real town called Sleepy Hollow in New York. Then I was disappointed when the town adopted the name in 1996 or 1997. So what was Sleepy Hollow known as before? It was originally called North Tarrytown, New York. So you can say that the town is definitely taking advantage of the Sleepy Hollow tourism there is today. So where did this all start? In his boyhood years, Washington Irving was living in Manhattan. But then the yellow fever pandemic took place in 1798. Irving was sent to Tarrytown to basically ride out the pandemic. And while he was living in the town, he started to learn more about the village that would become Sleepy Hollow. He learned about the Dutch residents of the area, and he learned about the local ghost stories and lore. When he was writing letters to his friends and family, he wrote, "Villagers spoke in hushed whispers of the strange cries heard in the woods where the captured British spy John Andre had been hanged." So already before Irving even came in with the Headless Horseman story, there was already some spooky vibes happening with the town. So at the time that the Legend of Sleepy Hollow was written, Sleepy Hollow didn't actually exist. It was North Tarrytown. One could argue that maybe Washington Irving named the town himself? So from my research, the bridge was real and it went over to the old Dutch churchyard, which is, a cemetery that's behind a church. Now, I have read that the bridge, the original bridge, no longer exists today, but they did build a memorial bridge, I think either around the churchyard or at the spot where the original bridge stood, but there is a plaque that commemorates where the original bridge once stood. Why am I mentioning this? Well, the bridge is a big plot point of the Legend of Sleepy Hollow. The Headless Horseman can't cross the bridge. So that actually brings me to my next point, the Headless Horseman. Wait a second, Alex, the Headless Horseman is real? Yes and no. Off the record, the Headless Horseman might be my favorite ghost ever. Next to Mary Ball Washington, but that's a story for another time. Anytime I see the Headless Horseman on his big black horse and he's just so majestic, and I have an odd crush on him for some reason. And when I see the Headless Horseman at Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Parade, ho ho ho, my goodness, it's so cool. And the Headless Horseman could be real. So the legend goes that there is an unmarked grave of a Revolutionary War soldier in the old Dutch churchyard, and that soldier was decapitated by a cannonball during the Battle of White Plains. And he's also known as the Headless Hessian of the Hollow. The Headless Hessian of the Hollow. Whew, some alliteration there. So going with the name, so the soldier that was decapitated by a cannonball was a Hessian trooper. So Hessian means that this soldier would have been German, and the Hessian soldiers were dispatched by the British Army, so they were not fighting for the Patriots or for America. I mean, Hessians didn't like the Patriots, they didn't see them as favorable, and they even perpetuated rumors about them, like that they were cannibals, which, is not true. So that you could say the Headless Horseman was a Hessian soldier, and I say this because this is a great example of how Washington Irving created a story to help people process the trauma that was the Revolutionary War. I mean, the story came out in 1820, so, before the Civil War, and America was still recovering from the wounds and the trauma of the Revolutionary War. So to have the Headless Horseman be a Hessian trooper, something that people feared and is villainized, I mean, that's an amazing way to, help people process trauma. What a way to represent America's enemy and make them like the ultimate villain of the story. There is some record that there was a Hessian soldier that was decapitated, but finding out this person's name has been a bit messy. This was mentioned in a TikTok video by Carter Rodney, and I was able to back it up with, sources. So on November 1st, 1776, Major General William Heath wrote in his diary about how a cannonball took off the head of a Hessian artilleryman. So some people say that the Hessian artillerymen must have died on Halloween, since William Heath was writing about it on November 1st, but, we could say safely late October. And this diary entry was about the Battle of White Plains, and White Plains is about 10 miles from Tarrytown. So thank you, Carter, for the tip. But it seems that the Headless Horseman legend isn't original to Irving. In the story, Irving's alter ego, Diedrich Knickerbocker, hears about the legend about the Headless Horseman from a Dutch housewife and a black mill worker. Honestly, I wasn't really able to find a lot of information that backed this up, but if we're going off the fact that Irving was inspired by real-life events in the story, then maybe that's who he heard it from. But given that Irving was in Tarrytown as a kid and was hearing about the local legends and lore from the townspeople, more than likely he probably did hear it from a Dutch housewife, but the rest of it I'm not exactly sure. I haven't been able to find solid evidence to back it up. It could be out there, and if it's out there, please let me know. And the reason why I say that the Headless Horseman lore is probably not original to Irving is because the lore of the Headless Horseman isn't just American. There's the Dullahan in Irish folklore, and I know I butchered that pronunciation, I'm so sorry. And then in Scotland, there's a Headless Horseman named Eowyn, or Eowyn, and he was decapitated during a clan battle at Glen Canir, which is located on the Isle of Mull. And because he was unalived prematurely, he didn't get to become a chieftain of his clan, so he haunts the area. So that's the Headless Horseman. Let's talk about Ichabod Crane. Honestly, the inspiration behind Ichabod Crane is really amusing. Yes, Ichabod Crane was a real person, but his only inspiration in the legend of Sleepy Hollow is literally his name. That's it. From what I heard, Irving saw Ichabod's name in a paper or report and he really liked it. I mean, come on, the name Ichabod Crane, it's beautiful when it comes to gothic horror. The real Crane was a military guy. He served during the War of 1812, and he was alive the same time as Washington Irving. Like, apparently they were stationed at the same base, station, fort, but they never met in real life. So like I said, Ichabod Crane, the real Ichabod Crane, was a military man. He served for 45 years. And what I find hilarious is that he was not amused at all that Washington Irving used his name in the story. Not amused at all. It could be because he's the exact opposite of the fictional Ichabod Crane. Like polar opposites. I mean, had the real Ichabod Crane faced the Headless Horseman in real life, he definitely would not have run away, and he definitely would have come toe-to-toe with the Headless Horseman. Oh, I forgot to mention where they were stationed together. So the real Ichabod Crane and Washington Irving were stationed together at Fort Pike. Again, they never met. And the real Ichabod Crane never lived in Sleepy Hollow. So where did Washington Irving come up with the fictionalized Ichabod Crane? There were two school teachers that are said to have inspired our fictional school teacher, Samuel Youngs and Jesse Merwin. A lot of people lean on Samuel Youngs being the actual inspiration because he and Washington Irving were really good friends. And he also took the Ichabod moniker and ran with it. He was like, yeah, I inspired Ichabod Crane. He was very excited about it. When I say that he was delighted to be the inspiration, he was delighted. And he's buried at the Old Dutch Cemetery or Old Dutch Churchyard in Sleepy Hollow. Then we have Jesse Merwin, who's believed to be the other inspiration for Ichabod Crane. And he was a teacher in a town called Kinderhook, New York. And the one-room schoolhouse where he taught still stands today. And it's a museum. You can see this in person. And it's been appropriately named the Ichabod Crane Schoolhouse. So, whenever you can get a chance to claim the legend of Sleepy Hollow, people do it. Let's talk about the Van Tassel family. So when Washington Irving was sent to Tarrytown, New York to ride out the yellow fever epidemic, his sister went with him, and she was staying at the Van Tassel house, and they were also neighbors. So the real Van Tassels and the fictionalized Van Tassels in The Legend of Sleepy Hollow are quite different. So basically, Irving took the Van Tassel name and made them a very wealthy family. And Katrina Van Tassel didn't necessarily exist. It's believed that she was inspired by Eleanor Van Tassel Bush, but Eleanor had an aunt named Katrina. I was also told that the events in Katrina's life, her name was spelled with a C, not a K. The events in Katrina's life were inspirational for the fictionalized Katrina Van Tassel. Again, taking the names and running with it. I read an interesting story that alludes that the Van Tassels may have had a tie with the Hessian soldier. So the real Van Tassels, the head of the household, they were named Cornelius and Elizabeth Van Tassel. And in 1777, their farmhouse was burnt down by Hessian and British soldiers. As they were watching their farmhouse burn to the ground, Elizabeth realized that their baby, Leah, was nowhere to be found. I don't know how you forget the baby, but that's another issue I have to work through. So they're frantically looking for the baby, and one of the Hessian soldiers takes Elizabeth and Cornelius to a shed, and there was baby Leah wrapped in blankets. And legend says that the Van Tassels were so grateful to the Hessian soldiers that when the decapitated Hessian soldier came to be known, the Van Tassels insisted on giving him a proper burial in the churchyard, just in case if that was the soldier that had helped them and helped save their baby. Granted, the Battle of White Plains was in 1776, and the farmhouse incident was said to have happened in 1777, so we got some discrepancies with the dates. But it's nice to think about. Finally, let's talk about Brom Bones. Yes, even Brom Bones was inspired by a real person. His real name was Abraham Martling, and Abraham Martling's nickname was Brom. He was the town blacksmith, and apparently he was a big guy, and he also had a big black horse, much like the headless horseman in the story. So it's pretty cool. By the way, just as a side note, I think in the fictionalized version of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, I'm pretty sure that was Brom Bones dressed up as the horseman. And I'd like to think that Ichabod survived the ordeal and, he did marry a wealthy widow and all that good stuff. So now you know the true story behind The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. And you can check out my sources in the description so you can do your own Sleepy Hollow research. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to share this video with your friends and family who also enjoy the spooky stuff and The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next round.